everyone, James Reeves with TFB TV, and welcome to another episode of TFB TV Goes to Hollywood. This is our 5-episode series that we brought to you from ISS, Independent Studio Services in Hollywood, California. They've got 16,000 guns on hand that they use both as props and for live fire, mostly for movies. But in this episode, we're talking about one gun in particular. Well, it was really like 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 6, 7 guns, and they were all different. But you get the gist. We're talking about the gun from Dirty Harry. But we're not just talking about the gun or guns, whatever, from Dirty Harry. We're talking about what that gun did for cinema, how it ushered in this gun as an art form in movies. And with a new art form, you need a new artist. You need not only a prop master who knows his stuff, but you need your prop master to also be a capable armorer, or at least be able to find a capable armorer. Speaking of capable armorers, I'm interviewing, of course, Larry Zanoff of Hollywood Weapons and the head honcho over at ISS. He's gonna tell us about the gun from Dirty Harry, the .44 Magnum, and what it did for the industry. Check it out. Hey everyone, James again with TFB TV, and you may realize that I'm here with a real celebrity. This is Larry Zanoff. I know you guys recognize him from Hollywood Weapons, and if you don't recognize Larry, you may recognize this revolver. That's right, this is the Smith & Wesson .44 Magnum from Dirty Harry. I'm here today at ISS, Independent Studio Services. We're just outside of Burbank, California. And Larry is the curator, the human encyclopedia, the man in charge here at ISS.
I don't know if I can follow that act, James. That's a hell of an intro.
I think, if anything, I'm underselling it because Larry knows more about guns than anybody I've ever met in my entire life, and we're very lucky to be here. But today we're going to talk about the Smith & Wesson from Dirty Harry. And we're going to talk about the gun itself, but more importantly, we're going to talk about what this gun stands for, the revolution that came from the .44 Magnum and Dirty Harry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Smith & Wesson, stock Smith & Wesson .44 Magnum Model 29. The unique thing about the gun is how iconic it became. It actually became a character in the movie.
But Ian, this is a .44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off.
And I think that was kind of like the first time that a firearm had become that iconic to where even people who weren't firearms people, they recognize it, they know what it is. And so it became kind of a marketing boom for Smith & Wesson. The .44 Magnum was kind of a oddity up until then. There were a few people that were doing some handgun hunting with it and everything, but it was a gun design that was kind of languishing away, to be honest with you, until that movie hit. And then all of a sudden, you know, you have Clint Eastwood on the marquee poster holding that gun. Everybody was interested in that gun. It's not even something, as we know, that law enforcement even ever carried or walked around with. But I think it captured, you know, the viewing public's imagination with taglines like the strongest, most powerful handgun in the world and things like that. And it launched a whole industry of items, not just firearms, but items where props became very prominent in the film industry. It's a 6-shot revolver. Cylinder pops out, and you'll notice on this one, it's very unique because these cylinders are actually welded shut. This was a specific gun used in the movie to where they could point the gun at another actor and have them feel comfortable that there was not going to be any accidental discharges or anything. There were a variety of guns used throughout the filming with a variety of barrel lengths, believe it or not. This particular one is a 6.5 inch. They had some other ones. Again, when the first film came out, they were actually having difficulty building the guns because there weren't that many parts around. It wasn't as big a seller as it is today. So when we also say it's the Dirty Harry gun, it's one of many of the
Not the only.
We have a saying in the prop world, which is, if you have one, you have none. And that's really true because you need a hero gun, you need a backup to the hero gun, then you've got a stunt double, you need a gun for him, you need a double for the stunt double. And so what you see on screen could be half a dozen different props that, because the editor is very skilled at tying all the clips together, then you just see the one item, but there's not just one of them, there's many of them.
Let's talk about what you do here at ISS, and I like ISS, Independent Studio Services, the most generic name for a warehouse full of 16,000 guns.
To start out with, ISS is a prop house. We happen to have a weapons division, but we have much more than that, as you saw when we gave you the tour. And we provide props to the film industry, whatever they may be. I happen to work in the weapons department, and I work as what they call a motion picture armorer. We manage stuff here in the department. We create technologies to blank guns. We tailor different items like holsters and things like that to specific productions. And then the motion picture armorer also goes out onto set and runs those guns. I've been working in the film industry for about 20 years now. Growing up, all I ever wanted to be was a gunsmith. My father was a mechanical engineer that dealt with very high-tech military contracting companies. I myself grew up in Israel. I was in the Israeli military for many years. But I was all building towards going to university to learn how to be a gunsmith. And I did. I come from the weapons world, not from the film world. But I guess I can't say that anymore since I've been doing this for 20 years, right?
Now back to the Model 29, who would have, back in the day, who would have been responsible for saying, this is the gun that we want to cast or that we want to use or what have you in Dirty Harry?
So the people who deal with firearms, there's two groups of people that deal with firearms on a movie set. Primarily, like we said, since we touch it, it's a prop, it falls under the auspices of the prop master. The prop master, though, may not necessarily be knowledgeable about firearms, or he's got 1,000 other props in that scene, like a crashing airplane and hand grenade and a car and a martini glass. So he doesn't want to have to worry about the gun. So he will bring in the motion picture armorer who will work under the auspices of the prop master. Now, I honestly couldn't tell you whether they picked this gun specifically because of a caliber or a look or whatever. I think it was very early on. A lot of these things that become very iconic, it happens almost by accident. It's hard to predict which item will become the most memorable thing. But I'm pretty sure that in the script they referred to, Dirty Harry being, Inspector Callahan. He was kind of this maverick officer. So of course he has to have something different than everybody else. It had to be the strongest, most powerful handgun around. At the time, it was the .44 Magnum. So I think it kind of organically grew into that position. And then, of course, once the movie hit the market, everyone who was a handgun aficionado or a film aficionado had to have the Dirty Harry gun, the Smith & Wesson Model 29.
You said, they had several different models, different barrel lengths. That necessarily wouldn't fly today, huh?
Well, some of the reasons for it was availability back in the day. Now we try to be a little bit more on top of it. In fact, back in the day, it probably was the prop master who was handling this. I don't even know that they would have had an on-set armorer back then. The industry has come a long way in recognizing that a motion picture armorer is a specific kind of technical expertise. And just like if you have makeup and wardrobe, they have a makeup and wardrobe person. If you have stunts, you have a stunt person. If you have any kind of firearm on set, nowadays you will probably have an on-set armorer to go with it. So back then it might have been just a little bit different. For all of the impact of this gun on the film, if you think about it, there wasn't actually a lot of gunfire with it. It was there all the time, but there weren't like really big pitched gun battles, so they probably didn't have an armorer back then. So it was probably under the auspices of the prop master, who in fact controls all of it anyway, because it is a prop. Nowadays you'll have some kind of prop or some kind of item in a movie, and before the movie even comes out, there's millions of copies of a toy of that prop from the movie. They're all ready to go with the marketing and all that. That's not something that happened back in the day. And I think the modern equivalent today would be the Desert Eagle. Beautifully machined firearm. Absolutely fantastic that the gun even works. Very little use for it. No one's going to carry that gun around. It's a very specific kind of long-range silhouette plinking kind of gun, but everybody knows what a Desert Eagle is, be it from a movie or a video game, because it's taken on kind of like the inheritance of the Smith & Wesson Model 29 from Dirty Harry.
It's funny, you say if you do your job right, it's subtle, it's a polish. But I also think of movies like Predator. I mean, what happens when you think of the movie Predator? You think of the minigun. You think of the scene mowing down the forest, everybody's doing a mag dump into this jungle. And when I see that, when I think of the movie Predator, that's what I think of.
I mean, those are the points where throughout the 2.5-hour movie, the one item become the iconic, kind of visual that's tied to that project. I think it's a testament to the skill of like the screenwriters and the authors that, and in conjunction with the director, of course, they come up with a vision. Our job, although it is stressful, I mean, our job is pretty straightforward. They have a vision, we have to make it happen, right? But they're creating this vision out of nothingness. It's all in their head. So when they're writing that scene of blowing up the jungle with the minigun, nobody had ever thought about hand carrying a minigun before. So that's like a spark of brilliance. That's, kind of lightning in a bottle that the people in this industry are able to come up with. And that's what makes this industry so thoroughly unique is the total creativity. Painters are great, but you can't tell a painter go out and paint a masterpiece. It's got to like flow kind of organically. And in this industry, it's like, well, every couple of months you have to have a new film coming out, and yet it's still like a masterpiece. So it's that junction between the creative world and the realistic world and the economy that makes this such a challenging job.
I thought this was amazing. I mean, guys, look at what's around us. And we've got more video for you guys coming from ISS. After the conversation that we had about the Dirty Harry, the Model 29, this really had to kick it off to give you guys the background, the information that I received today about how guns in Hollywood work. It really is incredible. It blew my mind. I thought I was just going to come here, see some cool guns, handle some cool guns, and I got an education. And hopefully you guys got some of that too. But stick right there because we are going to be walking around a little bit more with Larry. You guys are going to see more videos in the coming weeks from ISS. Larry, thank you so much for having TFB TV here.
Thank you.